Welcome to my CBSE English teacher. Today let's look at the line by line explanation of the chapter The Lost Spring from class 12 English. If you're watching my video for the first time, please subscribe. You can listen to the explanations of lessons from classes 10, 11 and 12 English. And don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a video. Let's move on to the video now. Lost Spring is written by Anise Jung. Anise Jung was born in Roorkela. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and has authored several books. The following is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring: Stories of Stolen Childhood. So, before moving on to the lesson, let's look at the meanings of these phrases. Looking for means searching for something. Slog their daylight hours. Slog means working very hard, extremely hard, and slog their daylight hours means working extremely hard throughout the day. Roof over his head means the shelter or the house. Perpetual state of poverty. Perpetual state means the continuous state of poverty where there is no change at all. They continue to remain poverty all through their life. Dark hutments is the dark houses where these people stay. Impose the baggage on the child means burdening the child purposefully. Okay, increasing the burden through various ways. So let's move on to the lesson. So as I told you, this is an excerpt from her book Lost Spring: Stories of Stolen Childhood. So in this extract, she is talking about children, especially the street children, the slum children, who are burdened with child labor and they are deprived. They are not able to go to school and get an education. Instead, they go to work. They work all through the day, and that is how their life is. And she's also talking about the people in power who do not care about them but actually exploit these people and make them do more work. So in this extract, she is telling us the story about two boys. One is called Sahib and the other one is called Mukesh. So let's look at the first story. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. So what does it mean? Sometimes I find a rupee. I means the narrator here. He says that he finds a rupee in the garbage. What is garbage? You notice the waste dump, that the waste people dump outside. So sometimes you see people rag picking. They go and pick some useful thing they get from that and put it into their bags and keep walking. So here she's talking this story about a rag picker called Sahib. Okay, so he says, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. So every time she sees this boy called Sahib, and he just keeps rag picking from her neighborhood. Neighborhood means the surrounding areas. So one day she stopped him and asked him, why do you do this? Okay, I asked him when I encounter every morning. So every morning she sees this boy going and scrounging for gold. What is scrounging? Scrounging means searching in order to find something. For gold in the garbage. For gold here does not exactly mean the metal gold, something very valuable. So these people, the rag pickers, go and search this garbage in order to find something very valuable. So she sees this boy every day, and one day she stops him and asks him, why do you do this? That means, why do you do this job of rag picking? Sahib left his home long ago. So he might have told his story to her. So she's telling that Sahib left his house long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. So his house was in Dhaka. Where is Dhaka? It's in Bangladesh. So his house was there in Bangladesh, and from there he left his house, and that was very long ago. So he does not even remember his house now. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes, his mother tells him. So his mother had told him that they had left the house in Bangladesh because there were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. So the storm had taken away their homes, destroyed their homes and their fields as well. So they had no means of livelihood. So that is why they shifted from there to this place. So he was from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Since they lost their house and fields, they have come to this place. So this is what the boy's mother had told him, and he tells it to the narrator. That's why they left looking for gold in the big city where he lives now. So he says that that's why they left Bangladesh and now he's living in this big city, Delhi, looking for gold. Gold means some valuable thing. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. And he also blabbered something, not looking into her eyes. What did he say? I don't have anything else to do. Go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. So immediately when he said that I have nothing else to do, that's why I come for this job, she said glibly. What is glibly? Without any thought. She said, why don't you go to school? But then as she said that, she understood that telling that is not very logical, because it's not easy for people like him who is a garbage picker or a rag picker to go to school. So that what advice is not good for him. There is no school in my neighborhood. And what did the boy immediately reply? There is no school near my house. When they build one, I will go. And he says, when there is a school near my house, I am ready to go. If I start a school, will you come? I ask half jokingly. So immediately, Anis Jung, what did she say? Suppose I build a school, will you come? And it was kind of a joke because she never really meant it. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. But immediately he answered, what did he say? Yes, if you build a school, I am ready to come. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? So after some days, the boy sees this lady and he came running to her. And what did he ask? Is your school ready? Because she had promised him that, not promised, she had told him that I am going to build a school, and if I build a school, will you come? And he said yes also. So he remembers that, and when next time he meets her, he came running up to her and asked her, is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant to be. And she never expected that this question would be asked. So she felt embarrassed because she knew that did not mean that she's going to really build a school, because that was a false promise that she had made. So she felt embarrassed. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. So when she said this, she realized that there are so many promises, false promises like this in his bleak world. That means in his bare world. So many people make a lot of promises to him, but nothing is fulfilled. So after months of knowing him, I asked him his name. And she knows this boy for quite a long time. And so one day she asked him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. So he tells his name is Sahib-e-Alam. He does not know what it means. So immediately she says that the poor boy does not know the meaning of his name. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. So she says that it will be very difficult for him if he knows if he knows the meaning of his name. What is the meaning of his name? It means Lord of the universe. But what is the boy right now? He is just a rag picker. And it is totally ironical. His name means Lord of the universe and he is just a rag picker. And so she says that it will be very difficult for him to believe the meaning of his name. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. So the narrator says that he is not aware of what his name means, and he roams about with the other street boys who are his friends, and they are all like an army barefoot, because they don't have anything, they don't have slippers or shoes, they just walk barefoot all over, and they appear like morning birds. She can see them coming in the morning and then disappearing at noon. Over the months I have come to recognize each of them. So she says that in a few months' time she started recognizing each of them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I asked one. So one day she stopped one of the fellows and asked, "Why don't you wear chappals?" "My mother did not bring them down from the shelf," he answers. So what was the answer given? The boy said that my mother did not bring the slippers down from the shelf. So, do you think that he really has slippers and his mother has kept it on top? No, it is just one way of escaping the answer. He is very poor. He is a rag picker, so there is no possibility of him having any slippers. So, just to evade her question, he tells her that my mother did not bring it from the shelf. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another, who is wearing shoes that do not match. So another boy immediately replied, even if the mother had given him the pair of slippers, he would have thrown them off, adds the boy. And this boy who answered was wearing a pair of shoes that did not match. So you can look at their state of poverty. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. So just when she had a look at his shoes, he felt okay, she has understood that the shoes are not matching, and he just shuffles, moves his, shifts both his legs in order to hide that. So I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. So another boy was there with them and he says, I want shoes, and he has never had shoes at all in his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. So the narrator Anis Jung, she says that she keeps traveling, and on her travels or during her travels she sees many children walking barefoot, mostly in the cities and sometimes on the village road also. It is not lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. So she feels that it's not that lack of money that they're not buying the shoes, but it is a kind of a tradition to stay barefoot. So that is what explains why these children are usually found walking barefoot on the streets. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. So she's saying that children walking on barefoot and giving different reasons for not having slippers, all these are just a way to explain the continuous state of poverty. It's because one of the major reasons for these children to walk about like this is their poverty itself. I remember a story of a man from Udupi once told me. So immediately she remembers a story about a man from Udupi. What story this man told her. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. So this boy would go to school, and as he was going to school, he had to pass by a temple, and in that temple his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. So what happened, as he is going to school, he does not have shoes at all. So as he is going to the school, he stops at the temple and prays for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple. So she says after 30 years, she was able to visit that temple and that town where that temple stood, which is now drowned in an air of desolation. So she says that that temple was now kind of abandoned. There was not many people around in that temple. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. So now she's saying the backyard of that temple, now a new priest lived, and there were red and white plastic chairs in the front, in the near his house. A young boy dressed in grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his bag on the folding bed, on a folding bed. So she saw that the new priest, his son had arrived from school. He was wearing a uniform and shoes and socks, and he was panting, that means heavily breathing. And as soon as he came from school, what he did, he just threw his school bag on a folding bed that was kept outside. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer of another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. So when she looked at this boy, she remembered the story of this man from Udupi. And this man from Udupi, when he had finally got who had been praying for a pair of shoes, he finally got a pair of shoes. And when he got the pair of shoes, he prayed. What did he pray? Let me never lose them. So as soon as she saw this boy with a pair of shoes, she remembered the story of this man from Udupi who had prayed for shoes. The goddess had granted his prayer. So that means now the temple priest who and his son, the boy has now his shoes and socks. So she says that the goddess has granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes. So she's saying that young boys like the son of the priest have shoes now. That means that there's a lot of change in the condition of the people like the priests. But many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. But she's saying that the rag pickers condition have never changed. They are still the same because they still don't have shoes. My acquaintance means familiarity with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri. So because she knew them, she was able to go to Simapuri. Where is Simapuri? It's a place on the periphery of Delhi. That means it is located on the outskirts of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. So she's saying, though it is situated on the outskirts of Delhi, it seems to be miles away from metaphorically means comparatively, because Delhi is supposed to be the capital city of India and it is so well developed, but compared to Simapuri it is very, very far away. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. So people who live in Simapuri are squatters. What are squatters? People who come and occupy an unused land unlawfully. So these people are actually squatters and they're all from Bangladesh who came here in 1971. Sahib's family is among them. So Sahib's family is also one of these families living in Simapuri. Simapuri was then a wilderness. What is a wilderness? An uncultivated land during those years. It still is. That means Simapuri is still an uncultivated or underdeveloped land. But it is no longer empty. Why it is no longer empty? Because all these squatters came and occupied that land because they have no other place to go. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage and running water, live nearly 10,000 rag pickers. So you see the condition of these people. You see their house is made of mud and they have tin roofs and tarpaulin and there is no proper sewage or drainage or water, and there lives about 10,000 rag pickers and their families. They have lived here for more than 30 years now without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on the voters list and enable them to buy grain. So these people have been living here for the past 30 years. They don't have any identity. That means people don't know who they are. There is no prominent personality here and they don't have permits also. They cannot do as they wish. But they have ration cards because they should get the voters ID that will enable them to cast their votes, and that will also help them to buy grain and live without starving. I hope you liked today's lesson. Let's look at the next part of this lesson in my next video. For more informative videos, subscribe to my CBSE English teacher. Like, share and give me your valuable comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.